Count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings and see what God has done. Alright, it is Wednesday. I know we missed our live yesterday, but we kind of had dental problems. David got some teeth pulled, so unfortunately we are otherwise occupied trying to make sure he was doing okay. So apologies, but you know, life happens. This video is kind of an inspiration. We were watching a show and it gave me an idea, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. We'll see. Are you ready? Let's see. Alright, and we've got robots for this one. Are you ready? Here we go. Did you see that? I almost got it. Are you ready? Here we go. Shout out time. Here's a shout out just for you. You support me, so I support you. This shout out is for our friends. Let's see who it is today. See if I can get the race started this time. There we go. Alright, we got She Said, there's Cruising Nuts, there's Catching, there's Kifla, there's Ian, Justice, and Cable, Kifla. There's Anne, there's Life, there's Van, there's Yuja, there's Sea Tripping, Principal, there's Mark, and there's Griselda, there's Distracted, let's see, there's Northern, there's Keep Digging, Hiking Ontario, there's Goat, you're a tiny robot, there's Cursar, there's Zelda, there's Glitter, there's Fox Clan, there's Josie and Lower, there's Reef, there's Rich and Will, Hillbillies, oh, Praying Across the Line. Okay, and this is Praying Couple. As you can see, more. Cooking, praying, fun, entertainment, inspiration, fashion, and other things. So here's one for veterans. Here's some of the clothing. Here's some of the food. And then some lies. So if you're into food, cooking, fashion, prayers, support, check them out, like, share, comment. Have a good day. Alright, here's the bearded historian who's not sure he can fill the time frame.
This is my wife, the brat, but...
Hey, we picked the topic, and it's an extensive one.
Yeah.
You run out of things to talk about in less than 15 minutes, I'm going to be very concerned.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to stay on one page, so I don't want to, double upping everything that I've been reading. But... looking at crime laboratories and our buddies with forensics, we both enjoy the show CSI Miami, even though sadly it's no longer being, shown. But, we still binge. Yeah, there's CSI New York.
NCIS. Maybe it was NCIS. I saw that they were ending again.
NCIS. There's,
I don't know.
There's like CSI, was there like NCIS Las Vegas?
Yeah,
or,
there's now a cyber one too.
Yeah. There's, let's just put it this way. Our society loves watching people bust cases. And it's, been an ongoing thing. Because what's funny is, I found out CSI Miami was actually a spinoff from an original show. So
yeah, it's from original CSI.
Yeah. But what's kind of interesting is that the whole backstory, crime laboratories were dealing with forensic science services. For the criminal justice system, forensic scientists applies scientific testing methods and the latest technologies to collect, preserve, process, and analyze evidence. Proof of guilt or innocence is frequently determined by the results of this forensic evidence. Well, The science, many kinds of knowledge, some which have existed, however, primitive for centuries. You think about some of our earliest methods, fingerprints.
Right, that one's been around the longest.
Yeah. Weapon identification. E2 Brutus got stabbed, knife. Document analysis. We're looking up plans and blueprints for assassinations. Chemical identification. This one I discovered one time is kind of funny because back in the day they used to have a thing that was called barium testing, where with a needle they could determine if a person's hand had fired a gun.
They still have the was it GSR test now?
Gunshot residue. Yep. And trace analysis of hair and fibers. Of course, if you happen to be bald, you might be able to get away with the hair, but, that's why they have skin. Two newer disciplines that have become major components, of course, DNA and explosive investigation. So
that only works for the bomb unit.
Yeah. Now, one of our best and biggest forensic laboratories in the world is, of course, FBI.
No.
Federal...
They always get them doing the cool toys first.
Yeah, I know. The female body inspectors or Federal Bureau of Investigation. 50 miles outside of D.C. at Quantico, I had a buddy of mine who was a sheriff up in Sturgis. He was actually invited to go to Quantico so he could help investigations up in Sturgis during the rally. Originally, it was moved to that site from a downtown D.C. facility when the new lab was built in 2003. The lab, now, Horatio never touches on this, but that's because he's in Miami, Florida. Right. The lab in D.C. has 650 employees and also partners with state and local crime laboratories throughout the country to help solve criminal cases. Now, if we want to take and have some fun, we're going to look at the history. Of course, I have to dig into the history, followed by the descriptions of the major types of forensic investigations used in crime labs, local, state, federal, private levels, and an in-depth look at the lab with details on how crime lab investigations identified individuals for different cases. It's also interesting because, like with everything, you got to start somewhere, and so we're going back to the ancients of days. The word forensic is actually a Latin term meaning in the court or public forum. Forensic science applies to scientific knowledge within a court of law, and forensic science has existed for many centuries. Its beginnings actually can be traced back to the 13th century, where in 1248 a scientist wrote a book called Hui Yang Yu, The Washing Away of Wrongs. The author tells readers not to be surprised if solving a crime comes down to the difference between two hairs. Now, although much of what the author discusses relies solely on superstition, the book clearly demonstrates the aspects of forensic detection that are still being used today. For example, the book discusses the importance of analyzing wounds inflicted on a dead body. Most importantly, the book talks about the need to study the scene of a crime. The book also teaches that to solve a crime, one must carefully observe all clues. Now, the Chinese first used fingerprint identification to match documents to their authors in the 8th century.
Wow.
That's a long ways back. By the 19th century, 4 main types of fingerprints were being identified: arches, loops, whorls, and composites. Fingerprint patterns proved to be unique to each person. By studying these patterns, they proved, come back here, the composites, criminalists could compare fingerprints to see if they matched. This idea has not changed and still is your fundamental basis of modern fingerprint technology. Now, granted, there are some criminals that have learned ways to burn off or remove fingerprints, sandpaper, acid, take your choice. An early famous case of firearm identification came from the Bow Street Runners, a group of policemen in England who became famous because of their success in catching criminals. In 1835, one of the Bow Street Runners, Henry Goddard, was called to the scene of a shooting. After the lead bullet was removed from the dead man, Goddard examined it and found a distinctive ridge. By comparing the marks on bullets from the firearms from several suspects, Goddard determined the source of the bullet and arrested the guilty party. Following Goddard's lead, many cases involving firearms were solved by the careful analysis of the marks left behind on spent bullets or casings. Well, it sounds like what's-her-face.
Yeah, that would be Kelly's department.
Yeah. Now, another ancient scientific study involved poisons. The word toxology comes from the Greek word toxicon, which means poison.
Toxicon sounds like it should be a transformer.
It should be. Lexicon of the toxicon. Now, Greek physician Hippocrates introduced toxicology by describing the uses and effects of poisons. In the Middle Ages, an Italian noblewoman named Catherine de' Medici experimented with poisons by giving them to people in the lower class and then recording their reactions.
Here, your poor just died.
Come here, try this spoonful.
A spoonful.
It's not sugar. And in the 19th century, a Spanish physician named Matthew Joseph Bonaventura, or Fila, was the first scientist to introduce chemical analysis as proof of poisoning in a court of law. This was 1787 to 1853. Now, in 1910, Professor Edmond Locard of the University of Lyons, France, established the first crime lab, based on the idea that criminals leave behind traces of themselves with every crime. Well, using Locard's principles, Los Angeles, California Police Chief August Vollmer established one of the first modern crime labs in the United States in 1923. Vollmer recognized the need to establish a reliable way of analyzing clues from a crime scene. Chief Vollmer modernized not only the LAPD, but law enforcement generally by introducing the use of 1. A crime investigation laboratory, 2. Fingerprint and handwriting classification system, 3. A workable system for filing information about the way a crime was committed, and 4. The creation of a police school where scientists could teach courses on the study of criminal behavior or criminology. Sounds like the forerunner to Horatio.
Right.
If you're going to build a team, have some fun. Well, the Bureau of Investigation, renamed the FBI in 1935, continued Vollmer's work in 1932 with the creation of the first National Crime Lab in Washington, D.C. Now, under modern forensic investigations, identification of firearms and weapon-related evidence has always played a critical role in crime investigation throughout the 20th century. I mean, let's pretty much call a spade a spade. People shoot at each other.
What?
You know?
No.
Firearm investigations involve examinations of fired bullets to determine what kind of weapon they were fired from. Examinations can eliminate various firearms until the match is found between bullet and the weapons is made. All pistols, revolvers, and rifles contain rifling in the bore and the long protruding part through which a bullet travels. Rifling consists of grooves and markings on the inside surface of the bore. These markings have a right or left twist that varies with each manufacturer. Well, congratulations, your gun has a fingerprint. Rifling studies the path of the bullet according to each weapon's bore. A raised marking on the bullet will correspond to a groove in the bore. In addition, the rifling characteristics, each bullet has tiny imperfections that reflect the imperfections on the bore. A test bullet fired from a gun, investigators believe, has been used in a crime, must be identical to the bullet taken from the crime scene. Now, if the test bullet and evidence bullet have the exact markings, then the crime weapon has been found. Now, together, the rifling and imperfections on the bullet can positively identify the weapon used to fire the bullet, and these microscopic or tiny characteristics are individualistic as human fingerprints.
Woo.
Tool mark identification also falls into firearm specialists. Tools such as prying instruments like screwdrivers and metal bars, or weapons like knives or axes can leave identifying marks. Whether on a safe, a door, a body, tool marks help identify specific weapons. Now, tools generally have trace evidence, such as metal shavings, paint, or in the case of a human victim, blood or other biological substances. In assisting the investigation of a crime, both firearms and tool identification add specific information to the body of evidence. Now, latent prints refer to the fingerprints, palm prints, and the footprints that are not visible to the unaided eye, but can be recovered from a crime scene for study. Forensic print specialists retrieve the prints using powders, chemicals, or special lighting. gathered latent prints are compared against those of suspects, or if no suspects have been identified, they are compared to the hundreds of thousands of prints in a computer database. Fingerprint identification and comparison has been widely used in criminal investigations since the 1920s and 1930s. Young J. Edgar Hoover, who worked at the FBI, created a fingerprint database in 1924. Now, wrap your head around this thought. At that time, there were records of 810,188 fingerprint records.
That's kind of impressive.
Yeah, from Leavenworth Penitentiary in Kansas and the National Bureau of Criminal Identification were combined to form the first FBI file. Well, there's a good footprint. Now, question documents in identifying who wrote a document and the time a document was written depended on the analyzing writing characteristics, ink types, typewriter, printer, and photocopy characteristics. The question documents department of the crime laboratories also restores documents that are damaged or have faded over time. One major function of document analysis is to determine forgeries, copies, or imitation documents created with the intention of pretending that they are authentic documents. Logbooks, letters, diaries, various legal contracts, checks, wills, notes left at a crime scene, and medical records are often typical documents that are analyzed. Chemical analysis of ink, including the age, is used to determine changes, additions, or the rewriting of documents. I remember one case when they busted the one bomber they caught up in Montana. He was the guy that was always writing letters to the papers and stuff, and it wasn't until they found out that his writing was tied to the typewriter he'd been using. It was a special model, and they were able to put two and two together, and turned out he'd been living in a cabin way out there, and he was a little bit of a disturbed fellow, you might say. Just a touch. He wanted to send bombs to everybody. He was not very happy.
Here's a bomb, here's a bomb, here's a bomb.
I will Merry Christmas you. Now, one of the oldest and largest sections of forensic crime labs is the chemistry department. The chemistry department undertakes the demanding task of identifying most solids or liquids crime investigators ask them to analyze. Bullet lead, metals from a disaster scene, paint chips from automobiles and structures, dyes, and biological specimens to test for illegal drugs, prescription drugs, alcohol, poisons, and food products are all examples of substances analyzed. Crime labs generally divide their chemistry department into various parts. Metallurgy, analyze metals for strength, corrosion, or evidence of being tampered with. Paints are analyzed in another unit. Most chemical analyses are performed on a wide array of instruments that must be maintained and quality controlled to assure accurate results. Maintenance and quality control are carried out by yet another chemistry section. These chemistry sections provide key pieces to crime puzzles. Speaking of metal items, they just had a thing that I saw via Facebook. A cold case had popped up in Miami, and this guy had disappeared in 1997. He went out one night, never came home, never showed up. Well, it wasn't until a neighbor who was curious had gotten a chance to look around the area on Google Earth. And surprisingly enough, he found a car in the pond in the back of the guy's house. Gee, I think they found their neighbor. Now, the toxicology unit, one of the largest chemistry sections, analyzes biological specimens. Toxicology, of course, is the study of toxic or poisonous substances that can produce harm or death to any individual who takes them. The toxicity or deadliness depends on the amount ingested by the victim. For example, prescription drugs taken as directed do not generally cause a toxic effect, but overdoses of the same drug can lead to death. Toxins or poisons can be man-made or occur naturally in nature, like arsenic. Please do not eat those mushrooms.
What?
That mushroom will last you your lifetime.
I like the mushroom.
For centuries, poisoning was a favored method of murder, and the study of poisons has gone on just as long. In the 20th and 21st centuries, although poison is still used in a few murders and suicides, Accidental poisonings are more common. The American Association of Poison Control Centers states that approximately 2 million poisoning accidents occur every year. It's kind of a scary number.
Yes.
Now, trace evidence refers to the microscopic or larger materials, commonly hairs or fibers, which are transferred from person to person or object to object during a crime. Examples include human hair, animal hair, wood fibers, clothing fibers, carpet or car seat fibers, rope, and feathers. Also analyzed, get away from my chicken. Also analyzed as trace evidence laboratories are dental specimens. You're not going to get any dental specimens off of me. Forensic dentistry is known as odontology. Now, physical anthropologists who study the physical makeup of humans through millions of years.
Now that makes me think of bones.
Yeah, bones too. Analyze skeletal remains in the trace evidence lab. So we're going to go play with a fever. Now, DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, is the substance of chromosomes are made of. Chromosomes are long connected double strands of DNA that have a structure representing a twisted ladder. Along the chromosome strands are genes, or the genetic code unique to every person, except in special cases, such as identical twins who have the same genetic code. Individuals inherit one strand of DNA chromosome from their mother and one strand from their father. These paired chromosomes, one from the mother and one from the father, are located in the nucleus of each of individual cells. There's your fingerprint scientifically. Now, after a specific laboratory treatment, DNA double strands separate into single strands. When photographed with the aid of a high-power microscope and computers, a single DNA strand appears as a long row of light and dark bands that look something like the barcodes on items for sale. The end result, the scientist can compare two strands to see if the bands lined up. If there is an exact match, the two samples came from the same person. Now, when samples from a crime scene include blood, saliva, and other bodily fluids, chromosomal DNA is separated into single strands, and the barcode of each strand becomes a DNA profile. If the evidence includes tiny or damaged quantities of DNA from hair, bones, teeth, and body fluids, then another kind of DNA testing can be analyzed and will also produce a unique banded DNA profile. Now my fun topic, explosives. Things go boom.
Things go boom.
Explosive experts respond to the scene of an explosion or investigate the discovery of an undetonated, unexploded bomb. It almost sounds like our bombing range out here.
Right.
They examine and identify parts of bombs. Even if an explosion occurred, the components used to build and detonate the bomb, although damaged, often can still be identified, like that trigger switch on that hand grenade. Chemicals, switches, wires, detonators are all characteristics of the builder. The builder may be an individual or a terrorist group. The number of bombs response units has multiplied across the United States since the bombings of Oklahoma City in 1995 and the World Trade Tower centers in 1993. Now, the FBI estimates that 85% of terrorist activities attempted towards U.S. citizens or interests at the beginning of the 21st century involved explosive devices. Talk about Napoleon Bonaparte.
Oops.
Now, the FBI laboratory is the most advanced and comprehensive crime lab in the world. Not only does it provide scientific evaluations for evidence for U.S. law enforcement agencies, it also cooperates in the shared information worldwide. The FBI is a federal government agency under the Department of Justice, the DOJ. Now, the FBI is made up of 25 departments called units organized into two branches: forensic analysis and operational support. Now, the units serve such functions, again, forensic analysis, scientific analysis, forensic science support, operational response, and operations support. So the FBI lab includes units for firearms, tool marks, latent prints, question documents, chemistry, trace evidence, DNA, and explosives, as well as a wide array of specialized units needed in the 21st century. For example, one unit carries out forensic examinations of hazardous materials, chemical, biological, and nuclear. Another unit sends out bomb and crisis response teams that collect and preserve evidence under the most difficult conditions. Some of those conditions can be really messy. There is also a specialized photography unit in the FBI lab and a graphics and design unit that recreates exact or scaled down replicas of crime scenes. Some of those are awesome to see.
Right.
Because somebody's got a lot of talent to pull some of those together. The FBI lab outreach provides educational and training opportunities for lab staff, FBI special agents, local and state law enforcement agencies, and persons involved with forensic laboratories throughout the country. Now, the latent prints unit has two categories of fingerprint holdings, criminal and civil. The criminal fingerprint file contains print records of about 47 million individuals
Wow.
who've been arrested and charged with a crime. Now, the civil files, about 30.7 million records. Civil prints are made of all employees of the federal government, all members of the U.S. military, those seeking employment in the banking and stock market industry, individuals applying for citizenship, adopting a child, or working or volunteering at a child or senior daycare center. My prints are in here because I worked for the census at one time. Now, the purpose of keeping these civil print databases is to perform background checks searching for criminal history. The FBI shows that the average annual hit of 900,000 checks, 900,000 prints each year submitted to the civil databases are identified persons with criminal history record. Civil submissions are also checked against wanted persons files and a terrorist watch list. Thankfully, I'm not a terrorist.
What?
The FBI receives approximately 50,000 fingerprint submissions every day. Now, here's a number to wrap your mind around. It received a total of 17.7 million submissions in 2003 alone. Some 48% of those submissions were civil, 52% were criminal. In July of 1999, the FBI revolutionized its database with the Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System, or IAFIS. Previously, all fingerprints arrived on paper fingerprint cards that had to be processed by hand. With the introduction of this system, prints and pictures can now be submitted electronically. What a step up. Now, the IAFIS allows personnel of the latent print unit to quickly process requests from law enforcement agencies all around the country for criminal background checks of people arrested or to check prints recovered at crime scenes against those on file. Many identifications have been made when law enforcement have no suspects. Other times, suspicion can be lifted from innocent people and the real offender captured. Now, the Question Documents Unit also compiles a number of databases that can be cross-checked. These databases include a fraudulent bad check file, bank robbery note file, anonymous letter file, or threatening unsigned letters, and even a shoe print file. If you ever get one of those lovely hate mail letters, these guys might have a copy of it. And even the shoe print file, 3 units provide laboratory analysis of evidence: firearms tool marks, latent prints, and the question documents. The firearms tool marks unit provides extensive firearm and tool mark identifications on weapons and tools used in crimes. They also restore serial numbers that have been altered or filed off firearms to hinder identification. The newest unit in the FBI lab is the Chem Biosciences unit. Chem Bio was added in 2003 for the forensic examination of hazardous materials. This unit works closely with the military, analyzing chemical and biological, even nuclear substances, and developing portable identification systems to be taken to field locations where incidences have occurred. Now, the chemistry unit is one of the largest, with secondary sections consisting of general chemistry, toxology, paints, metallurgy, elemental, analysis of elements such as lead, arsenic, and silicon. No marvels were involved in this process.
Oh no!
And instrumentation, operation, and support. The paint unit has samples of every color of paint used on U.S. automobiles dating back to the 1920s.
That's kind of fun.
That's impressive. Every auto manufacturer in the United States must send in paint samples every year. Most foreign manufacturers also submit samples. From tiny smudges of paint, the FBI paint sleuths can identify the make, model, and year of any automobile. That's impressive.
That is impressive.
Given how many cars we have on the roads these days. Now, DNA profile matches and checks identify murderers and sex offenders based on when they had been no suspect. They're also released innocent persons from suspicion. The 3 DNA divisions that are the CODIS unit, DNA Analysis Unit 1, and DNA Analysis Unit 2. CODIS stands for the Combined DNA Index System. We've heard of CODIS a couple times on our show.
Right.
They provide the database of DNA profiles from the crime scene investigators, a database of DNA profiles of persons convicted of felony, sex, or other crimes, and later added a missing persons DNA profile database. Now, federal, state, and local forensic laboratories exchange DNA profiles of convicted offenders using the CODIS. The NDIS system has 1.5 billion DNA profiles of convicted offenders as of October 2003. DNA Analysis Unit 1, the nuclear DNA, and DNA Analysis 2, mitochondrial DNA, analyze samples from body fluids such as blood, saliva, semen, and from hair, bones, and teeth. So lots of different choices.
Ooh.
Now, forensic science support also gets help from the Counterterrorism and Forensic Science Research Unit, carrying out research activities for all units of the FBI lab and introducing new and more precise scientific techniques. The constantly evolving methods of this unit help solve crimes and thwart terrorist actions. The Special Photographic Unit provides a wide range of services, such as crime scene photography, surveillance, photography from the air, and aerial mapping. Think of our drones.
Right.
We got nowadays. The unit works with traditional photographic units as well as digital imaging, and in addition, provides maintenance for the photograph equipment through the FBI lab and supports personnel with ongoing training classes. Come here, kid, we want to teach you something. Now, these units do provide some of the FBI's most dramatic services. Bomb Data Center, the Evidence Response Unit, and Hazardous Materials Response Units. So they send out that happy little robot with the arms to disarm bombs. Bomb Data Center provides the latest training techniques and equipment for local law enforcement bomb squads, those who are the first to respond to the threats of explosive and biological weapons. The Evidence Response Team Unit organizes the activities of Evidence Response Teams, the ERTs, made up of FBI special agents trained in evidence recovery from incident sites. The ERTs travel halfway across the world to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, after vehicles bombs destroyed residential buildings there on May 12, 2003. 23 people, including 9 Americans, had died at those bombings, and the ERTs are available to assist foreign countries when specially requested. The ERTs carry out crime scene investigations, including evidence collection, the preservation and documentation of that evidence, and also provide photography and fingerprinting. Now, the Hazardous Materials Response Unit coordinates specialized response teams trained to handle chemical, biological, and radiological and nuclear substances. It also oversees national and international training to respond to such materials and supports the FBI response programs located throughout the country. The unit also deals with an increasing caseload of environmental crimes, such as the illegal dumping of waste into the nation's waterways. Now, 2 units that provide operational support develop fascinating recreations of crime scenes by the reconstruction of not only buildings, but providing drawings of suspected individuals. The Investigative and Prosecutive Graphics Unit surveys crime scenes, then produces computerized animated scenarios of human movements and actions during a crime. They will provide maps, floor plans, diagrams, timelines, and they are the units responsible for composite drawings of suspects from victim interviews. This unit can also reconstruct the appearance of individuals from skeletal remains. These guys are good at their artwork.
Sounds like Angela from Bones.
Yeah. The Structural Design Unit supports expert testimony in trials by providing the three-dimensional models of crime sites, scale model of vehicles, the models of the bomb devices, and this unit also provides mannequins of victims for wound locations. You get technical if you want to have some fun.
Listen to me use that a few times though when I'm trying to figure out the angle of a shot.
The examples of investigative aids from the structural design and graphics units included the composite drawing of Timothy McVeigh, who bombed the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, a model of the building before and after the bomb blast, a map of the Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado, site of the mass shooting in April 1999, and here's my guy, the model of the cabin where Ted Kaczynski, the notorious Unabomber, lived in Montana. Now, until he was captured, Kaczynski had mailed 16 bombs between 1978 and 1995 to selected individuals across the United States, killing 3 and injuring 29. Charming fellow. Now, in response to the rapidly advancing computer and telecommunications technology, the FBI separated its forensic audio, video, and image analysis unit and the computer analysis and response team into a new division called the Engineering Research Facility in 2002. The new division of the FBI is its cornerstone for counterterrorism and cybercrime, using computers involving the Internet. These computer analysis and response teams train and assign computer specialists to the FBI field offices throughout the country. These specialists focus on searching and gathering computer data evidence. The Forensic Audio, Video, and Image Analysis Unit examines audio, video, and photographic evidence to help solve and prevent crimes. In 2002, in October, 2 individuals carried out sniper attacks in the Washington, D.C. area, as well as in Virginia and Maryland. Millions of residents were gripped by fear, worrying that their community would be next to suffer a deadly sniper attack. The offenders was a 17-year-old Lee Boyd Malvo and 41-year-old John Allen Muhammad. Between the time Malvo and Muhammad were first identified as the offenders and the conclusion of their trials at the end of 2003, 6 FBI crime lab units cooperated to bring the criminals to justice. The units involved were latent prints, DNA analysis, trace evidence, question documents, structural design, and investigative and prosecutive graphics. They also talk about some of the old mysteries that were solved. John Wilkes Booth, the assassinated Lincoln at Ford's Theater. Booth would drop his gun, a single-shot pistol, as he left onto the stage and escaped out the back of the theater. And the pistol would be put on display at the theater in 1940 in its museum. 1997, following the death of a suspected thief, records were discovered that he had stolen Booth's pistol in the 1960s and replaced it with a fake. The U.S. National Park Service, which runs the museum, asked the FBI to determine if the museum's pistol was real. Taking a photo of the original pistol taken prior to 1960 and the pistol on display, the FBI was able to determine that the pistol was not original. They were able to take also compared to the museum's pistol to other pistols at the same time period. Using dental material to make a cast of the inside of the gun barrel, the FBI determined the pistol had a number of unique markings and characteristics, including a crack in the wooden part of the gun. These characteristics proved the pistol was in the museum, was from the time period of Lincoln, was not a replica made in later years, and was the actual gun that had killed the president.
Interesting.
Yeah. Around October 23rd, 2002, Police Department of Montgomery, Alabama, decided to submit fingerprints gathered from the burn of a convenience store clerk to the FBI latent print unit. They suspected whoever was carrying out the shooting spree in the D.C. area might have been the same individuals involved in the convenience store murder. The FBI personnel entered the fingerprints into the integrated system. They got a match. Those prints belonged to Malvo, who had once been arrested on an immigration violation. Further examination of Malvo's records found another name, John Allen Muhammad. The latent print unit matched Malvo's and Muhammad's fingerprints to items left at the crime scenes. 12 hours later, they are both apprehended at a highway rest stop in Maryland. Now, FBI's DNA units matched DNA from crime scenes and from the cars of the snipers. The samples matched Malvo and Muhammad and included such evidence as bags, notes, a brown glove, and hairs found in a duffel bag and on a coat at the crime scenes. As well, their weapons recovered from their car. The trace evidence unit matched blue, gray, and white fabric fibers to the car seats of the snipers. Trace evidence also found brown fibers collected at the crime scenes matching brown gloves. One of them was left in the crime scene, and the other one from the car. Questioned documents analyzed notes written and left at 2 crime scenes and determined that they were written by the same person who wrote in a manual found at the suspect's car. These guys are just leaving a trail for him to find.
What?
Breadcrumbs. Both the structural design and graphics unit provides visual reconstructions used as exhibits at the trials. Structural design built a full-size replica of the sniper's trunk, complete with a specially made hole from which the shots could be fired. Graphics produced a digital image of the white van and truck originally thought to belong to the suspects, made diagrams of the crime sites, their victims, and possible positions of the shooters, and provided the timeline of the sniper attacks. Both Malvo and Muhammad were found guilty of carrying out the sniper attacks. Malvo, largely because of his young age, received life in prison without parole. Muhammad was sentenced to death. Now, the FBI units played a major role in the arrest and conviction of Malvo and Muhammad. Many criminal cases, like the D.C. sniper case, involved the cooperation of many departments and units on local, state, and federal levels. They all have the same goal of collecting, preserving, and analyzing all kinds of evidence to bring criminals to justice. But it's a pretty good illustration, as we go along with our science and the learning and the education. Yes, we are dumb monkeys, we still are, but we are getting smarter. And the good thing for us is that, we're able to reach out there, find the bad guys, and hopefully stop them before they do anything truly rash to our society. But this has been the Bearded Historian. You folks have a good week out there, and we'll see you next week.